Awesome. All right. Now we can get started. Okay. What's up, everyone? I'm Dr. Lindsay Matthews Cantu, and I am your BirthFit founder and CEO. And today we're chatting about the nervous system, like super basics of the nervous system, because I really feel like it is the foundational level, the foundation that you lay for a sovereign birth experience. Okay, few housekeeping details. I got a lot of stuff to share with y'all. Like I had lots of downloads to put in this. Like I haven't missed some slides I want to add some notes to. Um, so if you have questions, and I sure hope you do, put them in the chat box and I will get to them at the end. I should have some time at the end, but we're going to fly through some of this stuff. You will get the recording. It will be available to you to watch for at least 2 weeks after this, and you will get the slideshow. So you can print that out as a PDF. All right, let's roll. You already know me. A few things that we offer here at BirthFit are our BirthFit Blueprint membership. Right now, that's only open to second trimester mamas, but come May 1st, that is going to be open to any woman that is pregnant and any woman that is postpartum. We also just opened the doors for our BirthFit coach course. And right now, I believe there's still a discount on our wait list. If you sign up for the wait list, you get a nice discount. Doors will be open through May, and then we will close the doors so that everybody can get started on the modules. There's 14 modules, and then we will have our live calls in the fall. No promises, but because there was an overwhelming demand last year, we may open the doors back up depending on the numbers of the course. We may open the doors back up for a short time in the summer. So if you're interested at all in the coach course, whether you're a coach, a personal trainer, OBs, midwives, doulas, they've all taken the course, nutritional therapists, acupuncturists, probably about 50% of the course, coaches, personal trainers, and then the other 50% is professionals of some sort. So anybody is welcome in the coach course. And then as always, we have our a la carte programs. Those are the programs that you see as the BirthFit Basics prenatal, the BirthFit Basics postpartum, the first trimester training program, or the full term prenatal training program. Those are all the things that fall under the a la carte programs. So what the heck do? We offer general strength and conditioning with a quantum understanding and a respect around the nervous system. And I like to say we basically bring ancient wisdom, common sense movement, common sense training to the modern mama. All right. And because I know there's some new faces on here, y'all, I started BirthFit back in 2013 to be a bridge for me as a chiropractor in the wellness space, me as a birth doula in the birth space, and then me as a strength and conditioning coach in the fitness space. So I wanted all those things to come together. Yeah, so if you're just joining us, make sure you're muted. Throw your questions in the chat box and let us know where you're calling in from. All right. And I promise I'll get to the questions at the end. But like I said earlier, we gotta roll. All right, big goals for this presentation. I want to give you a nervous system view, or bird's eye view of the nervous system. I want to give you a view of the nervous system. I want you to know what it does, like just on like the global sense, how to enhance optimal function, what hinders optimal function, any misconceptions. I put some misconceptions in here that I think you've all heard of, and kind of where we stand today and some of my opinions. All right, so before we go on, for those of you that don't know, I've been in this wonderful quantum biology course, and I've been geeking out on circadian rhythm and quantum biology, that on the cellular level. And you don't have to know the details, but y'all, I loved the sun. I loved syncing up with the sun in my preconception phase and my um, pregnancy. Like I laid in the sun and got my son in belly or my belly in the sun as much as possible. And it really, like, the downloads that came to me postpartum was like, you need, like, the sun is so important. I don't understand why we fear the sun. Anyways, we can go down, we could have some more free talks on that in the future. But circadian basically refers to the natural rhythm of the processes inside of our body that are influenced and controlled by light, specifically the sun, or hindered by blue light. um Melatonin, yeah, okay, we're gonna geek out for a second. Melatonin is super critical for the birth process, but it's also one of the biggest things, regulators of our sleep wake cycle. It starts to rise in the evening and peaks in the darkness, suppressed by blue light, and it's regulated by the chiasmatic nucleus. Um, it works synergistically with oxytocin for strong, efficient contractions. So basically, what happens, and we're talking about endogenous melatonin, that which our body makes, not supplemented melatonin. Basically, I got my notes over here because I want to make sure you know this. Light enters our naked eyeball and it hits photoreceptors in the retina, and now it's traveling through a tract. Well, if you want to know this, the receptors inside of the retina contain melanopsin, and those are just a fun name to say. But the retinohypothalamic tract is a cranial pathway, meaning it bypasses the spinal cord and goes straight to the brain, and it goes to the suprachiasmatic nucleus inside of our brain, which is inside of the hypothalamus. And that is what controls basically all the physiological processes in our body. Think hormone release, sleep wake cycle, like I said, body temperature, even digestion. So when we can allow natural light in our eyeballs and the natural light at different times of the day, then our body starts to get in sync, and our digestion starts to get in sync, and our hormones start to get in sync. Just also side note, one of the, I would say, simplest, not easy, recommendations that I always give couples struggling with fertility is to sync up their circadian rhythm. So if we can entrain our master circadian clock, if we can optimize our light environment, then we can use the full capacity of these neurotransmitters, such as the endocannabinoid system, the GABA and glutamate, which kind of work to inhibit one's excited, one's inhibited, and our body's natural endorphins, which is really freaking cool. So light technically influences the nervous system. Okay, so I view the nervous system through a polyvagal lens. And I think this is really important to understand. And I love the work of Stephen Porges. The polyvagal theory was introduced around 1994. Fun fact, his wife studies oxytocin while he studies polyvagal. But anyways, the understanding our nervous system basically helps us to be more gentle humans and compassion for self and others. So if we're looking at the polyvagal perspective or lens compared to maybe what we were taught in grade school, the traditional view breaks up the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, into two things: sympathetic or parasympathetic, either or. And it also kind of puts a negative connotation on sympathetic. That's rude. But the polyvagal lens or view has three distinct circuits or levels, as I like to say, and not just two. It's not either or. It's like this phylogenetic hierarchy that our body works through, our nervous system works through when a threat is introduced. And we'll get into that. If we can look at and view the nervous system with a polyvagal lens, I do believe, even our training days and our programs are set up in a polyvagal sandwich. I do believe we can have a lot more respect around our nervous system and a lot more grace and healing for our nervous system. So this is the autonomic nervous system with the polyvagal lens. So our bodies are always prioritizing survival. Our bodies are always doing something for us, not to us. There's no, like, it crushes my heart when, a woman says her body failed her. No. Her body was operating in the best that it knew how, in the nervous system range of motion that was available to her at that time. And it was prioritizing survival. It was prioritizing survival for you. All right, so the polyvagal theory is based on the vagus nerve, cranial nerve 10. This is wild, like all my cranial nerve tracks and all this from chiropractic school are, coming back to life here. But as I said, it's broken up into a hierarchy situation. The ventral vagal complex is our social engagement system. And this is the part of the vagus nerve that innervates our face, our head and neck, and even like parts of the heart. Voice, tone, listening, like I said, facial expressions, connection, safety, co-regulation. Like, think about a mom looking at a baby, or when you enter a new place and somebody smiles at you, like that is a warm invitation. It has a great role in health and restoration. Then we move down and we have the sympathetic nervous system, and this is the fight or flight, or working out, if you want to view it in a positive sense. I think you should try viewing it in a positive sense. Function obviously is mobilization, movement, action, defense if needed, increased heart rate, increased muscle tension. So that's like the sympathetics are our muscles. Like, that's what I think about. It's very adapted depending on what's going on in the environment. And then the dorsal vagal complex is that freeze or shutdown that you might have heard of. And this is, none of the other two branches did not work. So now we're going to immobilize and conserve energy. It's that disconnect. It's our very most primitive, primal part of our brain. Like, these are myelinated nerves up here in the ventral vagus, dorsal vagus, unmyelinated. Here's another, I love this, this diagram. This is just this offers positive ways to look at this, and also related to sexual arousal or childbirth. Yeah, this is a great image. We'll keep going. All right, so neuroception is the phrase, is the $1 million word for our unconscious picking up on environmental cues. We're detecting a threat if there is one. We are unaware of this process. And usually, this process becomes our default, and it's programmed within the first 7 years of life, from womb actually to about the first 7 years of life. And different things influence, like, each one of us have a different map of this world. So think about the different things that program this, your family dynamic at home, your school system, your church group, your gym setting, all of that influences this map of the world. So our nervous systems operate within its own unique programmed range of motion, and within whatever I call it earned capacity that it has. So like I said earlier, nobody's body failed them. it simply worked within the range of motion that it had. All right, this is a little diagram that we made at BirthFit, and this kind of helps understand like the understanding things a little better. So social engagement, that's the behind the polyvagal theory. And so now look at this line going up and down, this vertical line. If there is a perceived threat, then our bodies will naturally go to this socialization branch first. Okay, maybe, on the negative side, there's threat, there's manipulation, there's slander, there's defensiveness, passive aggressiveness. But on the other side, there's consent. That'd be great for in a birth setting. So let's say there's a threat and consent isn't there, but manipulation is there. And now this woman can't chat her way out of it, can't talk, communicate her way out of it. So now her brain, her body goes to the next branch that's available. And that's the mobilization branch. And so now her body, if there's a perceived threat, especially in the birth setting, fight or flight, her body is going to restrict, the muscles are going to contract up. And now it's not going to be a good time to have a baby. Dilation is not going to happen. Her body thinks she's about to run on out of there, fight or flight. Um, when safety is perceived, this is working out, this is active labor, this is sex. It's great. Now let's say the fight or flight didn't work. Now the last branch that's available, right, is our most primitive branch. And that is that freeze or shock. And you often hear about this with a traumatic birth or, a birth where a mom did not feel out of control. She felt like she disassociated, she disconnected from her body. Or if there's been any sort of assault, disconnected. On the positive side, rest, digestion, orgasms, rejuvenation. So, in the grand scheme of things, our bodies, our nervous systems are only designed to be in this threat, a state of perceived threat, 20% of the time. 80% of the time, we're supposed to be in this health, growth, restoration, this healing, this state of safety so that we can expand, so we can grow, so we can flourish. A lot of the times we get stuck in chronic stress, chronic threat. And so we're living just over here on this side. This can show up as, fertility challenges. This can show up as, the inability to surrender and let go during labor. This can show up in motherhood, like you're constantly on and you haven't slowed down inside of motherhood. Each of these are state shifts. So if we're up here on the top left and we want to state shift to the other side, that involves movement. In order to state shift to any of these quadrants, either top left, middle left, bottom left, whatever, movement is key. And that is one of the biggest reasons as to why I have a movement company, a training company, a fitness company. Because if you think about it, animals know this, they do this intuitively, but we have thinking brains. Our thinking brain gets in the way sometimes. When a dog has a perceived threat or some animal in the wild, they usually shake it out and then come back. They utilize movement to down regulate or even up regulate if they need to. Interesting, huh? All right. So overall, research has found connection equals safety. This is the foundation of health, to be connected to yourself, connected to your God, connected to your community, your family, whatever. Social engagement is key to regulation and adaptation. As I was, geeking out, forming kind of like, I'll call it our family constitution, what kept coming up for me was people want to experience love. Children want to feel like they belong. And when we feel this love, when we feel this belonging, our nervous systems relax. And when we're in a relaxed state, this is when we can be the most truest version of ourselves, our most authentic self. And authenticity actually vibrates at a higher frequency than love, which is wild. And in this authentic state, we can explore, we expand, we grow. Just super cool. All right. So when we are in that safe state, like I was just saying, when we are accessing our true authentic power, we're actually accessing higher cortical functions, um, such as executive functioning of the brain. We can problem solve better. We have creativity. Have you ever noticed? Like I notice this all the time when I am just in a relaxed state and I'm not like depleted or lack of sleep. My creative juices are just going. When we're in this state, we have more empathy, more social connection. We're able to give more to our neighbor. Learning, I don't want to say it's easier, but the learning and integration and recall is better. And emotional regulation is huge. So, okay, how does this relate to birth? Okay, making informed decisions. The birth journey, gosh, we could have a whole checking my time. Okay. When labor starts, it's like a river, and the woman will get in the river and she's got to flow with the river. Husband, partner, boyfriend, whoever, doula, they kind of keep the banks of the river. The river might speed up or slow down at different times. Sometimes when the river feels like it's speeding up, there's forks in the road. Decisions need to be made. So, how great would it be if a woman feels relaxed in her body, feels safe in her environment, and she can be present. Maybe her eyes aren't open, but she can make an informed decision. Or you can have a really effective conversation with her. Also, during labor, it really helps to stay present. And like I said, she might be on a different wavelength, but she's present with each breath. If you can be present in that moment and breathe, that's going to get you to the next contraction. It's one breath, one contraction at a time. When we're our true authentic self, we can tap into our intuition, which is where our power is at. And if needed, collaborate with care providers. All right, so before we move on, I want to introduce you to some common criticisms of the polyvagal theory, which I actually think are pluses. One of the things is that it seems like it's oversimplified. But y'all, in my work, which, is not anything compared to, let's say, Dr. Stephen Porges, but in the time I've been here on earth and learning, our bodies are quite simple. Nothing about it is easy. They're simple and complex. And I don't know how to say that, but usually, other than those two words, but usually the answers are simple. But right, you look at this, okay, it's a phylogenetic hierarchy. Beautiful. It's simple laid out, but oh my gosh, is it complex underneath the surface? What has also been amazing in the criticisms is that there's ongoing support in the research realm, like studies for HRV and even neuroimaging have been consistent with Dr. Stephen Porges's work. One of the coolest things I think is the clinical aspect, which I think supersedes a lot. Like if something works clinically and works clinically for a lot of therapists. And the research is not there yet to support it. I'm going to go with the the clinical setting. Um, there's evolutionary consistency with this theory, which is great. Um, Also, Dr. Stephen Porges continues to refine this theory and updates things. There's something called the polyvagal, I think it's called the Polyvagal Institute. And he also integrates different findings from, let's call it, say, evolutionary biology, psychology, neuroscience. So he puts it all together. So he's open to learning, which a lot of professionals aren't, but wanted to point that out. All right, so if you are working with a practitioner or a care provider that operates through a polyvagal theory lens, which all of our BirthFit coaches do, and the BirthFit chiropractors, PTs, midwives, OBs, anybody that's gone through our course operates from a polyvagal theory lens. They recognize that the environment matters. How care is provided matters, not just what care is provided, but how it is administered. We also recognize that the ability to receive, the person that is receiving, is state dependent. Somebody might not be ready to receive whatever care or whatever is being offered on the other side. The biggest piece to establishing care is the relationship and the connection side of it. I often tell our BirthFit coaches that they will develop a relationship, a trusting relationship with their pregnant women clients on a deeper level compared to that woman and her OB or that woman and her midwife, because these coaches see these women 2 or 3 times a week. So now they've built trust there, and this woman can be her true, authentic self. And now she has the space to expand inside of that personal training session. So, all right, the other thing is, like I just touched on, the person that's receiving care, how that care, okay, so let's say that care is in a box. Here's your care. But whoever's receiving care, that's going to be dependent on whatever state they're in. So, like I said, maybe they're not open to receiving whatever care that is. Maybe they received a little bit of it. Maybe they received a lot of it. It's just like 2 people sitting down to have a meal, and they're having the same meal, but they each absorb different nutrients through that meal, because maybe one was in a very upregulated like state and the other was more relaxed and able to absorb more. All right. Creating safety isn't just about physical medical safety, which I think this is really hard for. What comes to mind here is my doula clients and the men, the husbands, the partners, the boyfriends. Creating safety is also about emotional and physiological safety that allows the birthing woman to remain in a state where she can access her full resources and tap into her God-given power. Men, by nature, innately programmed, like to fix things, right? And so that's why if the physicality of it is safe, they may not understand the emotional or physiological side of it just yet. You have to communicate that a little bit. I know, just from working with lots of couples. All right, so I want to share 2 examples. These are very common examples, and I tried to be general here, but yeah, these are birth scenarios. So birth scenario number 1, this is ventral vagal support. So remember, ventral is that social engagement, the myelinated portion of the vagus. The support person, like the husband, the partner, or doula, they're really connected. They've created a very relaxing environment. They're like this little cartoon image over here. This person's holding the woman's hand, and he's constantly reminding the woman to relax her face and relax her jaw, which in turn relaxes her pelvic floor, because there's a part of the vagus nerve that goes all the way down and touches the cervix. So the husband, partner, doula, whoever, they might be using breath, sound, movement, all those together. They might be asking the birthing woman to copy her, like copy me and make these open mouth exhales with sound. Y'all, this is vagus right here. We're relaxing vagus, which is going to relax vagus. That's a really cool ventral vagal support. Now, here's a threat response in the birth scenario. There's a transfer to or a traumatic thing that happened in the hospital birth, and it happens to trigger for a sympathetic or a dorsal vagal action. I put thing because, right, we all have these different maps of the world. So what I view as traumatic may be different than what you view as traumatic. One may view a transfer as a positive, or another may view a transfer as traumatic or negative. But you get the idea. So now we've gone beyond the ventral vagus, and now we've activated sympathetics. So if a woman views the transfer as a negative, she's gone to the hospital. Now her body has shut down or has even left her body. She stares off. Intervention strategies to restore safety might include the epidural or Pitocin, because that's what's known, or that's what's in their tool belt in the hospital. But that may not work for this woman. That may not be what she needs. Remember, the how is just as important as the what that is being administered. In order to return back to a ventral vagal down-regulated state, she might need connection, hand holding, looking in her eyes, breath, sound. Anytime, maybe a woman, her plan was to go to the hospital all along, but transferring or changing up the environment in birth, that's going to elicit some sort of nervous system response. So knowing that when you get to the hospital, even though that's where you choose to birth, get going on breath, sound, movement, connection. Get going on trying to tap into that ventral vagus. And that may take a little time. So you can see those little birth examples there. All right. Before moving on, I want you to give yourself a little self-assessment. You can write this down or do this later if you want, but I want you to become aware of your own nervous system and your own patterns. Recognizing state shifts is huge. So dry lips, dry mouth, when do you have that? When do you have a racing heart or sweaty palms? You have a pit in your stomach. Like, all those are evidences of state shifts. There's more, but those are just a few examples. When you get triggered, do you go inward first? And the greatest example of this is on Instagram. Everybody gets triggered by something on Instagram or social media. Before lashing out and attacking the other side, what triggered you? What are your resources to go inward? Can you slow down and tap in? And y'all, there's a natural flow in life. And there's always going to be expansion and then contraction. We must contract before we expand. We must contract before we expand. And you see this in birth. Contraction allows for a little more expansion. Contraction allows for a little more expansion. So if you can start to recognize this in everyday life, or you can, is this today a contraction day or an expansion day? And you may find, especially as women, that we kind of flow with our menstrual cycle and or the moon cycle, the lunar cycle. So reflect on that, think about that. And then every day, it is so important to reset your circadian rhythm. As we talked about earlier, light greatly influences your nervous system. our nervous system responds to 48%, like 48% of our nervous system responds to light, whether it's good light or blue light. Less than 10% of our nervous system responds to nutrition, yet we have nutrition gurus all over social media. We need more light and quantum gurus. There's some good ones out there. But simply resetting, excuse me, your circadian rhythm each day, getting outside, naked eyeball in the sun. If you can see the sunrise as soon as possible, great. But try to tap in every hour or so, 5, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever you got. Or break the day up into quarters and do like 20 or 30 minutes outside. All right. Misconceptions. Okay, we're doing good. We're doing good. These are the biggest misconceptions I see. One is that sympathetic, right? I mentioned this in the beginning, is fight or flight. Sympathetic is not just fight or flight or a negative thing. If and when the dorsal vagal perceives a threat, like the previous branches didn't work, then it's freeze. So it goes down to the dorsal branch. Sympathetic expanding is growth. It's adaptation. And literally, if you're in the fitness world, right, it's fitness gains. That's huge. So sympathetic is not just fight or flight or a negative thing. Get that out of your brain. The other thing is I've heard is like, I got to do a somatic practice, or I got to be I got to do this embodiment thing. Somatic embodiment practice is something you do. It's not just a yoga thing or a sound bath or gong vibes, you know. It's not something you check off the box. Lifting weights can be a somatic practice. It is literally how you live, how you show up every day, the intentionality behind it, how you move. The intentionality has a lot to do with it. So you can be a weightlifter and have an epic somatic practice. Okay, a regulated nervous system is calm and cool. No, it is not necessarily calm and cool. A regulated nervous system is one that can adapt and is resilient. It can explore its range of motion, expand, and then come back. Go like perceive a threat, adapt, do its thing, and come back to a homeostasis. With a polyvagal theory lens, a regulated nervous system has these characteristics. Like I just said, there's flexibility and resilience. There's appropriate activation and deactivation. So if there's a stress response, depending on the stress, there's an appropriate response. So if there's like, if somebody bumps into you, you know, you're at the supermarket or something, you don't lose your shit and epically have a meltdown. That would be an inappropriate response. Or you don't stay stuck in one of those states. There's a window of tolerance, and you have the capacity to experience activation, calmness, without becoming so dysregulated. I used to draw this dot on my hand when I was going through therapy. This is years ago. And that was my reminder to take a breath. And that was my window of tolerance. That gave me a window of tolerance because I did not have a window of tolerance created. There's effective neuroception. This goes with the appropriate activation, deactivation, but your nervous system picks up on environmental cues appropriately. When there's misinterpretation of the environment, that might be from childhood trauma or different things that were programmed early on. There's a social engagement capacity, the ability to co-regulate and connect with others. We have self-regulation tools and the homeostatic efficiency. Like I said, our bodies have the ability to come back to homeostasis. All right. And last one, this one I hear a lot, that healing the nervous system takes a lot of work. Y'all, it may take a lot of work or a little amount of work. It is usually simple. Like I said, the answers to things are usually simple, but they're not easy. Some tools that work for me may work for you, or they may not work for you. And it actually might require more time and space than actual work. If we're defining work, we can go back to our free fitness talk. And that's basically moving loads. That's work. Maybe what your nervous system needs is a pause and a slow down. So it doesn't take a lot of work. All right, beyond birth, practical applications. You can take this polyvagal theory lens, understanding of the nervous system, into parenting, into relationships and communication opportunities, work opportunities. If you're a therapist, definitely you're coming at the setting with the client through a more trauma-informed approach. And then in healthcare applications, when I was practicing as a chiropractor, we measured HRV on people on their first visit every time. HRV, heart rate variability, is basically measuring the person's range of motion of their nervous system. How adaptable, how resilient is that person's nervous system? Nervous system chiropractors have been doing this for a while. Chiropractors have been honoring and tapping into and caring for the nervous system way longer than it got before it got trendy on Instagram. So definitely, if you don't see a nervous system based chiropractor, do so. All right. Oh, that messed up. Y'all, if you don't follow me on Instagram at BIRTHFIT. I'm not really on my personal one right now, but if you would like a discount, grab that code right there, webinar 20, and you can get a 20% discount on our programs right now. All right. See, we jammed through that. Let's take questions. All right. I'm going to look over here at the question box first. And then if you have questions, throw them in the chat box. Let me see. Do the coach course. It's amazing. Thanks, Dr. Kate. Not only been able to use all the amazing information in my practice, but I'm also, 2 weeks postpartum. Congratulations to you. Oh, thank you. It was a game changer for my pregnancy and now recovery. I love that. Somebody asked, yes, the recording will be available for at least 2 weeks. After the 2-week mark, we usually put it up for sale. But since you're signed up, I would say you're going to get it in the next day or two, whenever Kat gets the recording up, and you'll get the slides too. Okay. What are some strategies to use for trying to conceive? So just like somebody that's going into birth, we have to let our nervous system know that we are safe. When our nervous system perceives safety, that's when health, growth, restoration, and healing happens. Then reproduction happens. When we perceive safety, reproduction happens. Then our brain will signal, okay, we're safe. Now let's release some sex hormones. Let's signal to the ovaries, let's release an egg, and boom. I think that's one of the biggest things. So I mentioned low-hanging fruit, right? Syncing up with the circadian rhythm. And also chiropractic adjustments, right? Nervous system based chiropractic weekly adjustments and connecting with the nervous system. Those are some of the, I would say, lowest hanging fruit for fertility. Yeah. And that, like, y'all, I could go down a rabbit hole, but if you're even thinking about exploring the IVF, IUI world of things, the ART, assisted reproductive technology route, there's at least, you're at least $5,000, 10 grand, 20 grand in. So why not try the natural options first? because I just read this stat this morning. Those that did acupuncture, um, even alongside doing ART, had a 65% more likelihood of getting pregnant, which is wild. I think nerves. Yes, 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 absolutely. Tight pelvic floor. Um, there's a great book called The Body Keeps Score. And as women, our pelvic floor definitely keeps score. Absolutely. So check out that book. But in the grand scheme of things, if your body does not perceive safety, it's not going to prioritize reproduction or making quality eggs. Great question. Okay, what other questions? Ooh, what are the most impactful ways to regulate nervous system during pregnancy and communicate safety to baby? Well, as I mentioned, we all have different maps of the world. So what you perceive as safe is going to be maybe different than me. I will share, what worked for me was starting my days with a little bit of meditation and prayer, um, some music, some gospel music. I love gospel and movement. I would always talk to baby because baby is a hitchhiker on mom's nervous system. And this, oh my gosh, I should have put this on a slide. Baby is a hitchhiker on mom's nervous system. And this was so apparent to me in practice whenever I would scan mom's nervous system and then scan the new baby's nervous system. Um, and usually we would wait to scan baby's nervous system somewhere between 2 and 6 weeks postpartum or years old. But that baby is picking up on environmental cues in the womb via mom's nervous system. And then baby does not know they are separate from mom till somewhere between 9 months and 18 months. So they're outside the womb, picking up on environmental cues, watching mom, mirroring mom. And yeah, baby's a hitchhiker on mom's nervous system. So definitely prayer, meditation, and movement worked for me. Music, my baby girl loves music now, which is awesome. Being in nature is always, always, I think, key. If you can put your bare feet on the ground, get some of the grounding effects, the earthing, and sunshine. As I mentioned, sunshine was key for me. Other people, some people love a warm bath. Some people love a good book. Obviously, eating super nourishing foods. If you can, this is a big one for preconception too. If you can nourish your body with really nutrient dense foods, that also tells your body you're safe, right? Because you're not running from prey, you're not in a famine or anything. But the more well fed you are, the better, I would say, the more the calmer, the more regulated your nervous system is. So practicing those preconception and then carrying that on into pregnancy would be key. Um, If you're generally like, do the things that make you happy, that make your soul happy. And when you feel that, and when you feel that joy, when you feel that love, that you can be your authentic self, baby is going to feel that and they're going to feel safe. Yay. Okay. We got another one. Each of our programs, so I don't know, I know some of y'all were here for our fitness talk in January, but I wanted to reiterate or communicate that each of our training days inside of BirthFit are set up through a polyvagal lens approach. So what I mean by that is they start with a social engagement, like checking in with the body. How do I feel today? Then we get into sympathetics and challenging the system. And then we finish with down regulation for the day. So if you're training, if you're working out like that and you leave the gym very upregulated, like you haven't tied a bow on your training for today, then your training might actually, carry you out into the real world, still upregulated and almost depleted and exhausted. Um, we definitely need to have upregulated can be a positive, but if it's exhausting you, if it's depleting you, um, it's not great. I see that with a lot of CrossFitters. All right. What else we got? I got time for one or two more questions. Any misconceptions y'all have heard that I didn't hit? I will say, if you can nourish your nervous system, explore the range of motion of your nervous system, do that physical assessment, like play with, like, when do you notice the contraction and the expansion? You will be able to tune in on such a deeper level. And almost like if you're pregnant, you'll almost be able to tell, oh, now's the time, birth is starting. I feel like I'm entering the birth portal. It's a beautiful thing. Being in that connected, safe, nourished, regulated nervous system state is where we tap into our intuition. Or that channel is just like so open. All right, y'all. You got time for one more question if anybody has it. If not, you're going to get this recording. And I sure hope you join us in one of our programs or the coach course. Doors are open right now. The BirthFit Blueprint membership will be open to prenatal and postpartum come May 1st. And yeah, I hope you walked away with kind of a bird's eye view of the nervous system. And congratulations to Dr. Kate. Good for you. Oh, it's not unrelated. How often should you get adjusted during pregnancy? I got this question over here. So I used to be okay with every other week. This was early on in my career, but I am the biggest advocate for getting adjusted once a week in pregnancy. And if you have a symptom or something comes up, like you're like, oh my God, I feel my right pubic bone, or I got right rib pain or something, then the frequency needs to be more. Your body is changing and adapting on such a rapid level. Your nervous system, right, is exploring new range of motion every day. And it's got a new map of the world every day. And when you get a little symptom like that, like, oh, lunges bother me, but squats don't, take that as communication. Like your body's letting you know, oh, something's just a little asymmetrical right now. We need to get that checked out. So definitely once a week, and then more frequently if you have any symptoms. Absolutely. You're so welcome. All right, y'all. Good talk, free talk. If any questions, comments, or concerns come up, simply reply to the email that you get, and I'll be happy to answer them. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.